Hey there, it's Wayfair here, where delivery and setup are as easy as a few taps on your phone. You're relaxing in an old hammock, scrolling Wayfair's app, when you spot it, a brand new patio set. Next thing you know, Wayfair delivers it right to your patio and sets it up. Oh, you need a new grill too? All right, Wayfair's got you covered. With Wayfair's Room of Choice delivery and fast expert setup on qualifying orders, life gets a little easier. Visit wayfair.com or the Wayfair app.
Wayfair, every style, every home.
It's time for the Larry H. Miller Utah Summer Games at Southern Utah University in Cedar City. Register today to participate in the 40th anniversary season of a Utah sports tradition at utahsummergames.org. Participate in over 50 sports around the state. Then plan to join the opening ceremonies Friday, June 5th, presented by State Bank of Southern Utah. Register today to participate in the 40th anniversary season of the Larry H. Miller Utah Summer Games.
DJ and PK, it's 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Joined now by Mitch Harper, BYU insider for KSL Sports. Mitch, good morning.
Good morning, DJ. Happy to be on with you today.
Happy to have you here. You are on the road. I believe you're about to echo what PK says. When you get on the road, do you find time to talk to people one-on-one aside in a way that you can't get when you're on the Wasatch Front?
No question.
You hate to give up the trade secrets. Nice pause.
Yeah, no, it's true. It's you get the one-on-one time with the administrators and coaches. It's a great setup, the Big 12 spring meetings, and I will say that there's definitely a lot of frustration from coaches about the current system as expected. They all want rules to follow by. At least that's what they say. But, I think that there's, a quiet optimism, I think, though, about the future of the Big 12, which is interesting to me because you hear so much about, a potential split between the Big 10 and SEC and how do they close the financial gap, the Big 12. But yet there seems to be a lot of optimism about the future of the Big 12, which is interesting because it's a league that, after 2031, what can you, do they have the same fate as the Pac-12? Like, what happens with this league? But yet they feel like they're still leveling up with the investment that these schools are still putting in. It's kind of an interesting, there is some momentum, it seems like, with the Big 12, despite what would on the surface seem like they're far behind the SEC and Big 10.
Well, they are, and there's some teams that financially will never be able to keep up. But I think life goes on, having grown up rooting for a team that has limited financial resources. And then I went to a school that's got limited financial resources and doesn't even play football. They dropped it and tried to bring it back and then dropped it again. There's still a spot out there for games and star athletes and big moments, and it'll look different going forward, but you'll figure it out, and sports isn't going away at these schools. It may look different, but, Baylor and Texas Tech were in the Southwest Conference. They're in the Big 12 with Texas and Oklahoma and Missouri and without them and A&M. So it'll go on. There'll be something out there, and they'll have a lot of money, and they'll play big games, and it'll look cool. But it may look really different in another 5 or 10 years. That's to be sure. In the short run, how much optimism is there for this season and getting more than one playoff team and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, they feel really confident. And even Brett Yormark told me that he feels that, some of the brands, the football brands, are separating themselves from the parity pack that the Big 12 has been known for the first couple of years, and highlighted, of course, Texas Tech. Yep. But also BYU and Utah. He feels like those are some of the three programs that are really elevating themselves. And for BYU, Kalani Sitake feels really good about where his football team is at. He even noted that, LJ Martin is looking really good when I asked him if he's cleared and ready to go. And he said that LJ will be ready to go for the start of fall camp and good to go on that front, that it looks excellent right now. I think this is a critical year for BYU, and I think it's also critical for Utah too, even though it's year one for Morgan Scalley, that, they kind of have the opportunity to establish themselves as maybe that big three in the league, because Texas Tech is not slowing down, and that was quite the spectacle yesterday to see Joey McGuire calling out Texas, and I loved it. I thought it was fantastic to see, kind of almost like a WWE style.
Yep, you're on the same page, man. We are on the same exact page with that, Mitch. I thought the same thing. I thought that'll never happen, but I'm glad he said it. It gives me something to talk about. The showmanship. Basically, the only thing they missed is why didn't he say something totally Texas like, Sarkeesian's all hat, no cattle. That's the only thing missing. Otherwise, it was all there.
It really was, but I think that it's a good football product. It was interesting talking with the Big 12 football chief, Scott Draper. He noted that the College Football Playoff Committee chairman spoke to the football coaches and laid out that the Big 12 in many metrics last year rated as the second best conference. And I asked Scott Draper, I said, well, why did that not reflect itself in the rankings? Because, yes, Texas Tech was number 4, but BYU was undervalued. Same with Utah, who only had 2 losses to 2 teams that were in the top 14 of the rankings. And he said that's where things get a little bit foggy and that's where there's some coaches have some of the frustration with the playoff, and that's why they've unified and all agree on voting for 24. Kalani Sitake said that whether it's 12, 16, or 24, he doesn't care either way, but he did say that 24 he wants more access, and he does believe that could be, he'd feel confident that would be a path where more Big 12s can get in. But I asked Yormark, though, about, if he'd want the automatic qualifiers or not, and he said he does not want any automatic qualifiers, which to me is a little bit problematic, because who's to say that 10-2 BYU or 10-2 Utah doesn't slide near the back of the rankings? We've seen that before with. You go look at some top 25 rankings in the past with the committee. Kansas State a few years ago in the 4-team playoff was, a 1 or 3 loss team. They were in like the top 10. They were higher ranked than what BYU was last year. Who's to say it just doesn't shift back, and the SEC and Big 10 teams that naturally have better metrics, it seems like, are going to be higher in a 24-team format. But Yormark doesn't want any at-large bids for the 24-team playoff format.
He will not come on the show. Yak has requested multiple times, so I'm glad you got to talk to him, because that's about our only access to him. And that's too bad, but I don't understand it. You ought to be marketing yourself the way the NFL markets themselves, which is they get out there and take all the free media they can. They had multiple 49ers talking yesterday in the offseason. So I don't get why he does that. But to me, the logic is – and you can address this too. It seems Yormark is already in favor of a 10th conference games, which, as big as these leagues are, I'm in favor of. So you play the teams more often and you develop some kind of rivalry and history. And the other leagues have kind of been talking about it. The SEC did it during the pandemic, and I think it went over well. I wouldn't be surprised if they go to it at some point, in the Big Ten as well. So how are you going to compare between conferences if they're never playing each other? Plus, also, it gives you something to play for. The Athletic had a really interesting story that they went out and talked to coaches who are at the FCS level and D2 and D3. What's it like to be in 24, 32, and 40-team playoffs? Because that's what they do. And they said all these arguments, they're amazed about the arguments about the games at the end of the year won't matter, and Michigan and Ohio State will be sitting players. And they went to these smaller schools and rivalry games. It's not what happens. The players want to play, and you're playing for seeding, you're playing for byes, you're playing for home games. And the byes have not been useful early on, but all the coaches are like, well, that's because they're giving them 23 days off, and that's too much. Rest versus rust, now into rust territory. But 1 week is very valuable. And they tracked how those teams did in the playoffs. Those are the ones who win and make deep runs and go to the title games. So I think there'd be a lot to play for, but I think you have to give every league 4 berths and then let the committee maybe disperse the last, if they're giving one to the G5, disperse the last 9 and do the seeding. And do the seeding as well. The last 7, I guess, would be. Do the last 7 berths, but 4 teams from each league locked in. And then you're playing for that. You're playing for the automatic berth to be off the bubble, and you're playing for a home game.
I agree with you. I think that's spot on, and I think that the automatic qualifiers would ratchet up the intensity and the excitement. I mean, and I think it is funny, the narrative about, how it'll hurt the regular season. We all witnessed a BYU program for more than a decade, as an independent where really they played for nothing after they won their sixth game, yet people still cared. It was still far paled in comparison to what they're experiencing now in the Big 12. But even then in independence where they get to 6-3 and really they were playing for a whole lot of nothing, especially in November, people still care because football is a lot of money and there's a lot on the line. People are going to naturally care. And so I think that it can be a really good thing. And I think for the state of Utah, to have access, real legitimate access to the playoff. And I think that's just exciting. And that energizes, I think, really all the programs, because even Utah State could look and say, if we do this and this in a really good Pac-12, that could do a world of good for Bronco Mendenhall's program. So I think the 2014 playoff, it's so radical compared to what we grew up with college football. But you know what? I think it's a better system than having, the media vote for the national champion. So I'm okay with 2014 playoff being a thing because, I think there's good football all across the country. And with the investment that you're seeing with some of these teams, it makes a lot of sense. And Yormark told me that he feels the 2014 playoff will, as he put it, take some of the heat off of the spending because, we're getting to a point where Kyle Whittingham said 50 million rosters are here and it's coming. Yormark believes that it might tone down the spending a little bit to get to top 25 rather than top 12. I still think that that's a little bit naive, but that's where he kind of stands on that.
If the world were like a Sleep Number mattress, everything would adapt for your comfort. Because as your life changes and your body changes, Sleep Number mattresses adapt and shift to give you personalized comfort night after night. And now it's the final days of our Everything's on Sale event. Save up to $1,200 on mattresses. Our Memorial Day event ends Monday. To experience a whole new world of comfort, visit a Sleep Number store or go to sleepnumber.com. Sleep Number, to a good life's sleep.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm not with you, actually. I don't think it's a little bit naive. I think it's wishful thinking.
Yeah.
I think it's a lot naive. I think people who write checks want wins, and there is no end to the amount of complaining they'll do. And the best local example I've seen of that, when they were dedicating the new indoor practice facility, and Kyle had just taken over for Urban only a couple years earlier. No, it wasn't the indoor practice facility. It was the new Death Star. That's what it was. It was the new football headquarters, that building. And they had a tent out there. And Spence Eccles, who's the easiest guy to talk to, couldn't be a nicer guy. I've interacted with him multiple times, and he loves his Utes. He has written so many checks, but he got up in front of that microphone and recounted that was a long drive back from Logan after that loss. And I looked over at Kyle. I could see him. There's always people in the way, right? But I see the look on his face, and I'm like, that's the look Kyle looks on his face when he's trying to keep a straight face so that people like me don't comment on his face. He was not thrilled. But you write those checks. Every game matters. You want every win. Yep. Spence was being honest. And they'd done a lot of winning. I mean, Kyle was stringing together double-digit win seasons at that point. They weren't far removed from the Sugar Bowl at that point. It was like, really? It was like one overtime game on a bad call. A phantom holding call. You got to call him out now in front of everybody? Ouch. But I think on the end of wild, passionate, crazy outlet, I think Spence Eccles is on the mellow end of that. There's tons of boosters at lots of schools who are way more wired than he is for that kind of thing. That's nothing, really.
It's true. And to your point, too, about, 10 conference games, I did talk to the football chief, Scott Draper, about that. And they did say that they are exploring that. And the focus on that would be to enhance the media rights. And that was something that's interesting takeaway with this week is, basketball, they've acknowledged too that they're looking at the 20-game schedule. They said it won't happen this year, but
why not? Come on, move it along. Buy out some of those money games. Get on with it.
Well, I think that, I would say, though, with basketball, they probably should stay at 18 because I think the 20-game schedule, you look at the Big 12, I think the strength of the league kind of got hurt by having a 20-game schedule 2 years ago where they didn't have as many NCAA tournament bids And I think that because there's oddly enough there's some quality to playing those quad 4 teams if you can blow them out. If you can beat them by 30 or 40 points, that can help your metrics. And then by the time you get to the conference season, you're sitting in the top 25 of the predictive ratings, and you're probably going to be nestled in there the whole time, assuming you don't get blown out in many games. So I think that 18 to me would be honestly the spot, I think.
If the analytics are helped by the fact that you beat Riverside by 70, somebody needs to change the analytics. I'm with Kevin Young. He, after one of those games, I can't remember which one, but after about their fourth blowout of somebody who was wildly overmatched, he said, I don't know what we get from these games. Yes, what he said right there. I think more quad 1 games, and the whole reason they came up with quad 1 is so the power leagues could lock themselves in. They did that to screw over the UC Santa Barbaras and San Diego States of the world. I get it. I know why they did it. So lean into that, Big 12. Two more quad 1 games. Plus, it'll make your TV package more valuable. There'll be more big games. People want to see conference games from Arizona and Kansas. And the way BYU's going from BYU too. This is what ESPN's leaning into. And here's another thing for football, and I'd be interested if you talk to people on this. Why is the Big 12 locked into largely 3 non-conference games in a row and then 9 conference games? They should be moving more conference games to week 2 and 3 like they did BYU Arizona, but they only did that so BYU could play Notre Dame. I think Texas Tech, and this is the one that to me, because Texas isn't going to play them game 1. So talk about it, but it ain't happening. But if SEC teams are going to bail on Notre Dame games, McGuire said, we'll take that game. The Big 12, that could happen. The Big 12 should absolutely take those games. The Big 12 should go to Notre Dame and say, we'll play you in October and November. Let's do it. It makes your TV package more valuable. Move conference games to week 2 and 3. The TV networks are dying for good games week 1, 2, 3. And the coaches will say, we don't want conference games week 1. And I get that. I'll give that to the coaches. But weeks 2 and 3, play conference games. You'll get good time slots. CBS will pick you up. Fox will pick you up and put you in that 1:30 window. Let's go. Let's do it.
And I did talk to people about that, and the ACC was very cooperative in bringing together the BYU Notre Dame game, and they highlighted that collaboration. Even though these leagues sometimes don't get along on things, there are areas that they do collaborate, and as people have noted, that it's for the good of the game, if you will. But yeah, I mean, I think the Notre Dame piece is interesting because Notre Dame, it seems like with the Big Ten and SEC, they're trying to squeeze the Irish out, and there's an opportunity there for Big 12 teams to, schedule the Irish. And, Brian Santiago noted that, a lot of conversations with Pete Bavacquia, Notre Dame athletic director, about more athletic meetings beyond just football. They're hoping to make this a long-term thing. And I talked to Santiago about how that could happen, but the week 0, potentially changing week 1 to week 0 in the future, beginning next year, that's going to be a vote next month. That could create some shuffling with the schedules. And even Santiago acknowledged that some schedules could shuffle around in the non-conference because of the week 0 dynamic and having that new date. So when you're changing the date, that can change the terms of some contracts, and some shuffling could be around. He hopes that, Notre Dame could be a long-term partner, and that makes sense. I mean, it's been talked about the last few weeks, BYU and Notre Dame. That make a ton of sense. But the Big 12 did note that they were very willing to collaborate with BYU and Notre Dame and the ACC to get that game in October, because I talked to him. I said that's very uncommon for the Big 12 to have a non-conference game in October. Were you willing to do that? And they said absolutely, because we need a game like that that's going to be high profile, and it would just made all the sense in the world. And I think it helped the cause too that BYU was getting the first home game, because, I mean, as well as anyone, it's like that every round table with Tom Holmoe was like, what's going to happen with that Notre Dame series? And now to think that the ACC, which was kind of the thorn in the side for that series, they end up being, more collaborative in helping BYU get the Irish to pro. So, yeah, and with scheduling too, I talked, with some people about, permanent rivals, because now we're starting to get some history in the Big 12. And I know that PK's talked about this, BYU and ASU need to play all the time. And, they are going to be considering that with the scheduling matrix coming up that's going to expire after 2027. They are looking at maybe multiple annual fixture teams beyond just BYU and Utah. Maybe it's BYU and Arizona State. Maybe it's, Utah and Colorado potentially, whatever it may be. They are looking at, having permanent rivals, because that also adds value to the media rights. They are just already, I really wasn't expecting they are locked in on that next media rights deal. I mean, that is what your mark is thinking about every single day pretty much. And I think that's the right approach, because the Big 12, for years ago when BYU was even outside the league, you always looked at it from afar and said, that's a flat-footed league that always was reactionary. They're trying to be proactive in a climate where maybe the system will shake and turn underneath them, but they're trying to be proactive and ready for the moment to, potentially pounce when that media rights comes, and whatever that may look like in the future.
Mitch, we appreciate the time. Congratulations on getting in and out of Frisco before it hits 90. Good work by you.
Thanks, DJ.
Yeah, Frisco at 105 is no fun. I've done that. You got to avoid that. It gets pretty hot there. Thanks, Mitch. Mitch Harper, BYU insider for KSL Sports. He's at the Big 12 meetings. Coming up next, Jason Batikow, Utah Utes writer for the Salt Lake Tribune, with a story about the University of Utah, Otro Capital. The state auditor says the private equity deal has significant risks. We'll talk with Jason coming up next. Stay with us.
Summer is all about freedom, fun, and growing up. And between the ages of 9 and 13, kids are starting to form their views about alcohol. With more independence, their still developing brains need more guidance and support than ever. That's why summer is the perfect time to stay connected and plan fun, safe family activities together. Research shows kids who spend quality time with their parents doing what they enjoy are less likely to drink underage. And when kids feel close to you, they're more likely to listen, especially when you set clear expectations. In fact, kids who drink before 15 are far more likely to struggle with alcohol later. This summer, create a no-bummer summer with fun, alcohol-free activities for your kids. Go to summer.parentsempowered.org to take a quick quiz and discover ideas tailored to your family. A little time together can make a big difference. For more information and to learn more about how to prevent underage drinking, visit parentsempowered.org.
This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Do you ever think about switching insurance companies to see if you could save some cash? Progressive makes it easy. Just drop in some details about yourself and see if you're eligible to save money when you bundle your home and auto policies. The process only takes minutes, and it could mean hundreds more in your pocket. Visit Progressive.com after this episode to see if you could save. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Potential savings will vary. Not available in all states.